It is a cold, rainy, and snowy day here in Clear Lake, Iowa. Today we're doing a video on the day the music died. And this is a place I've been wanting to visit. Well, 3 different places here in the Clear Lake, Madison City area that I've been wanting to visit ever since I was a little kid. Now what you're looking at right now is the Surf Ballroom. This is where on February 2nd, 1959, Buddy Holly, Ritchie Valens, and the Big Bopper played their last concert. The music lives on. Welcome, rock and roll fans. Now I'm trying to stand back a little bit so you can get the whole picture. And what I mean by that, if you look down at the pavement, you see the way the bricks are? It looks like records, doesn't it? I'm guessing that's on purpose. There's one there, and then there's a smaller one right over here in the corner near the bench. Also, there's one on the other side of the building. Now this is cool. Let me get somewhat close to it. On the top it says Ritchie Valens, Buddy Holly, and the Big Bopper. In memory of rock and roll legends and the pilot, Roger Peterson. The above legends played their last concert at the Surf Ballroom, Clear Lake, Iowa on February 2nd, 1959. Their earthly life tragically ended in a plane crash 5.2 miles northwest of the Mason City Airport on February 3rd, 1959. Their music lives on. Wow. Like I said a little bit ago, I've always wanted to visit Clear Lake, Iowa, the crash site of Buddy Holly, Ritchie Valens, and the Big Bopper the day the music died. But it always felt like it was just too far out of reach, like it was too legendary, it was too horrible. But it exists and you can actually come here. Today we're going to be visiting the Surf Ballroom, which is right behind me. They do give tours. We're going to go inside in just a moment. We're going to go to the airport where they took off, as well as walk out into the field where the plane crash happened. This one kind of hits home.
We interrupt this program for a special news bulletin. 3 young singers who soared to the heights of show business on the current rock and roll craze were killed today in the crash of a light plane in an Iowa snow flurry. The singers were identified as Ritchie Valens, 17, Buddy Holly, 22, and J.P. Richardson, known professionally as the Big Bopper.
Wherever I come, bad luck just comes my way. Wherever I go, hard luck is there to stay. Good luck never stays a day. A bad luck's always coming my way.
Words cannot express how beautiful this place is in person. And pretty much everything in here has either been restored or it is original. So you actually get to step down into the dance floor. All the booths are original. You can just imagine, you can hear the music playing in your head.
You hear the dancing.
Right?
The swing dancing they would have been doing right there.
And there it is. So, I'm actually getting teary-eyed. I've never cried on camera before. So, what you're looking at right now is the last stage Buddy Holly, Ritchie Valens, and the Big Bopper ever performed on. And you can see the red curtains, right? So right behind the red curtains, there's 2 raised areas. That's the original stage that they performed on. I'm getting choked up.
I like that instead of demolishing it and remodeling it, that they just added to it and kept the original stage. You can tell that those red curtains are the original and just built to the front of it.
Right.
I love the palm trees and the pineapples everywhere.
How many times, if you're watching this channel and you've been watching, how many times do you ever hear us say, we walk history, or we love standing in history? This is the epitome of it. This is for like music history. This is it. I had to turn the camera around so you can. I'm not crying. I'm getting a little wet in the eyes because this is, like I said outside, this really hits home. And the fact that it's so silent, but it still has life in it. Now, there's a few things that I've heard about that I've always wanted to see. And the first one is right over here on the other side of these palm trees. Now, this was the green room. Now, this doorway is, I'm getting chills just standing here. So the night that they took off, Buddy Holly was going to be flying, and they had 2 open seats. And Ritchie Valens won a seat on the plane by tossing a coin. It was done in this doorway, and this exact doorway is where, I guess you should say, Ritchie Valens sealed his fate. You know, I mean, not realizing it, nobody could have known.
And that night, Ritchie had to play drums for Buddy. Buddy played drums for Ritchie. They switched around, you know, and I saw a little more of Ritchie that night than I had been, you know. We was backing him on the show, but he was in and out there playing drums, so he asked me 4 or 5 times could he fly in my place. And no, I wanted to get up there too. Had a lot of dirty clothes. So got off the bus. It was out here, kind of around the side of the ballroom, and walked over, got my little bag, little duffel bag full of dirty clothes, went over to the station wagon, was parked right here at the back door. And Buddy and Mr. Anderson was in the front seat of the station wagon. And the big Bopper was in the second seat, so I slid in and put my bag there. And Buddy said, Tommy, go back in and check and make sure we got everything loaded out. And he had never said that before, you know. But we loaded our own stuff every night. We didn't have roadies back in those days. So I came back in here, in this room right here, here's the door I came in. And Ritchie was standing right behind you in the doorway there, signing an autograph. And he seen me come in here, and I walked over and looked in that closet. He said, come on, guy, let me fly, you know. So for some reason, I just pulled a $50 out of my pocket, flipped it, and said, call it. He said, heads. So it did heads. So I went back out to the station wagon and told Buddy, I said, I'm not going. Me and Ritchie flipped a coin. He's going to my place. Buddy said, that's cool. But I said, but will you go to the post office? My mother had sent me a letter. Back then, you sent it to general delivery, you know. And he said, give me some ID. So I took my wallet out, fishing around for my fishing license, or somebody had the ID on the driver's license. And he said, I'll just give you all that. So he took it and he put it in his inside pocket. Well, when they found the bodies the next morning, they found 5 wallets with different IDs. So they had my name on the Associated Press as one of the people on the plane. And then Mr. Anderson came out there and he said, I talked to him a few years ago, and he said, I came out there and identified the bodies for him and told him that you weren't on the plane. So that was that.
Right at the entrance to the doorway into the green room, there's a framed photo here. It says, the day the music died, Tommy Alsop was Buddy Holly's guitar player for the Winter Dance Party Tour. The tour ended with a tragic plane crash on February 3rd, 1959. Again, we're going to go to that field in just a little bit, known in rock history as the day the music died. Now, this isn't the coin that Tommy Alsop flipped for the plane ride, the seat on the plane with Ritchie Valens, but it is a coin here in the exact spot that it happened. Oh, geez Louise. Wow. Oh, look at it, right there. Oh man. This is almost too much. So performing, they would have walked right out here on stage. Oh God. Thank God for a gimbal because I am shaking. Right now I'm standing on the original stage here at the Surf Ballroom, looking out over the crowd. I feel slightly silly, slightly like a big dork. You can hear it in my voice. They would have been staring off here, and if you look, I'm going to show it in just a little bit, but there's 3 artist rendition paintings up there. There's Ritchie Valens, and right in the middle is Buddy Holly and Big Bopper. Do you feel it? Walking out into the dance floor, they definitely don't make venues like this anymore. Now above Jessica, you can see the paintings that I was telling you about on the stage. Ritchie says La Bamba, Buddy Holly says oh boy, and Big Bopper says hello baby. At the back of the dance floor and on one side are still the original booths. Now, I've read different interviews of people who attended the winter dance party that night, and a lot of people said it was like one of the most memorable things they ever experienced. I mean, even before knowing what happened. Mm-hmm. This is gorgeous. Look at this. Look at that. What does that say?
It's the number of the booth, and you can reserve it, I suppose.
Man.
They all have them.
Yeah, they do. We showed you the view from the stage looking out to the audience, the same view that Buddy Holly and Valens and the Big Bopper would have had. But if you were in the audience, this would have been your view. I know I say this all the time, Baby Ghoul. You know, each place that we visit is my favorite, or it gets better and better and better. Out of all the things we've ever done, here in Clear Lake, Iowa, nothing has ever hit me like this. This has to be my favorite. I've never gotten emotional at a place before, ever.
This place is a ship in the bottle. Like, it's so well preserved. I don't think they've done much renovation or change to it at all. So it looks exactly like it did back in the day. And just the cleverness of the design is so gorgeous. And I feel like I can hear the crowd. I feel like I can hear the band playing. I can hear the dancing, you know, the little shoes on the wooden floor. I feel like I've stepped back in time. And it almost feels like, well, it is modeled after the Cabana Room. And I feel like I'm in some luxurious hotel in the swing days, you know. It was beautiful. I'm overwhelmed by its beauty.
Aside from the stage and the doorway where Ritchie Valens won the coin flip that put him on the airplane, there's one other spot here at the Surf Ballroom that I find myself a little hesitant to go see because of what happened. And that's right over here, near the coat check and the entrance to the Surf Ballroom. And you can't go in there, you can't touch it, you can't pick up the phone, but there is a payphone here. Now, if you read it, it says, this payphone was used by Buddy Holly to call his wife, Maria Elena, in New York, and by Ritchie Valens to call his manager, Bob Keane, in Los Angeles on the evening of February 2nd, 1959. Now, just imagine this. Now, we're going to talk a little bit more about the crash when we get out there, but Ritchie Valens, 16 years old, his first big tour. He's sitting in this phone booth talking to his manager, Bob Keane. And Ritchie Valens is complaining to him, not because of the people, but they were basically traveling in a tour bus, which was actually, from what I read, like a school bus. There was no heat. The drummer at one point got frostbite, which Buddy Holly sat in and played drums for one of the bands at one point. But Ritchie Valens was thinking about giving up and going home. And ultimately he decided to stay, but he made that phone call to Bob Keane on this phone hours before he died. Buddy Holly, he called his wife and just to talk to her, just to check in. And the story goes, his wife, Maria Elena, she was having dreams, almost like premonitions, that something bad was going to happen to Buddy. So when he hung up the phone, he didn't tell his wife that they rented a plane and that they were going to fly to the next location. When they got off the phone, she was under the understanding that they were going to drive. So Buddy Holly was afraid to tell her because he didn't want to worry her. You can go back in time, right? I think this is my favorite plaque I've ever read by the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and Museum in Cleveland, Ohio. It says, Surf Ballroom and Museum. There are a few buildings in existence today that represent a complete shift in our musical history. As the last concert venue for Buddy Holly, Ritchie Valens, and J.P., the Big Bopper Richardson, the Surf is the bedrock of where the sound and attitude of rock and roll changed forever. If that doesn't give you chills, surrounding the plaque are different photos that were taken that night. Right there in the center, clear front and center, that's Ritchie Valens. Behind him, right there, that's Waylon Jennings. And then over here on the right-hand side, that's Tommy Alsop. Wow, look at that shot right there. Ritchie Valens playing guitar with Tommy Alsop right behind him. Here's a shot of Dion and the Belmonts, and you can't really tell, but you see this guy right there? He's got glasses on. That's Buddy Holly playing drums. And the reason why he was playing drums is because the drummer had frostbite on his feet from riding in the tour bus without no heat. Now that is a photo. Buddy Holly singing right there in the center. On the far left with the guitar, it's Waylon Jennings, Tommy Alsop to Buddy Holly's right. And there's another shot of Buddy Holly. Again, Waylon Jennings is on the left-hand side. Tommy Alsop is on the right. And I can't believe it. Now there's a baby grand piano here. There's a little plaque that says, this baby grand piano has long been a part of the Surf's history. Used for many years on stage and played by countless musicians, it became a canvas one evening when Duke Ellington signed the underside of the top board. Due to its historic nature, please refrain from playing. Well, it's a good thing I can't play it. But look at this right back here. This is what caught my eye. Winter dance party the day the music died. And then they also have the signatures. The walls are lined with different pictures of different people who performed here, as well as posters and newspapers. Look at this one here. Mason City Globe Gazette, rock and roll idols among lake crash dead. There's a photo right there. When we drove out there last night, I knew that it was pretty much in the middle of a field, but I didn't realize how secluded it really was. Plane piloted by Clear Lake man plows into field. There's a picture of Buddy Holly right there. The Big Bopper, J.P. Richardson, and Ritchie Valens. And there's another picture of the plane. A tradition begins. Every year they hold a new winter dance party in memory. There's some different photos and write-ups. I think it'd be really cool to come out here one day for a winter dance party. There's these 3 shadow box display cases. The first one over here is for J.P. Richardson, the Big Bopper. Got a couple different pictures, and there's a microphone and a telephone right there. The one in the middle is for Buddy Holly. It doesn't really say, but I'm guessing that's one of his guitars. It looks like the one that's in the picture right above it. But this right over here for Ritchie Valens, he was 16 years old. And there's a guitar signed. Jessica made her way over to the coat check. This is pretty neat.
Let me get to your ticket.
Well, I didn't give you my number yet. Oh, wait. 218.
Check your fur coats at your own risk. As seen here.
No, it's cool, does it? So it has 864 slots for coat check. You would give them your stuff. They put on all these hangers here. You get a little number. And there's space on top too for your other belongings. That's just so cool.
Right? I wish we can go back in time and be here that night. It's kind of hard to tell because it's so far off in the distance. But what you're looking at right now is the Mason City Municipal Airport. This is where they would have taken off that night. And about 5.2 miles, roughly that way, by the center of your screen is where the plane crashed. Now the Surf Ballroom, if we were to keep following this road right here, the Surf Ballroom is a couple miles down that way. Immediately after the concert and making the phone calls, they came here. The plan was for Buddy Holly and Ritchie Valens and the Big Bopper to fly ahead to get some laundry done, to get some well-needed rest, and to just kind of stay warm because, again, the tour bus was just way too cold. Now, Alsop was supposed to be on that plane with Buddy Holly. He lost the coin toss to Ritchie Valens, and the Big Bopper wasn't supposed to be on the plane. Originally, the seat was intended for Waylon Jennings, but the Big Bopper was battling the start of the flu, and Waylon Jennings, being kind, gave up his seat to the Big Bopper. Now, Buddy Holly and Waylon Jennings were friends. In fact, I guess you could say that Waylon Jennings owes his life in music to Buddy Holly. Before they got on the airplane here at this airport, Buddy Holly turned to his best friend, Waylon Jennings, and said, "I hope you freeze on that tour bus," jokingly. And quickly, Waylon Jennings turned to him and said, "I hope your plane crashes." It was a joke. Nobody knew what was going to happen, but it crashed not too long after it took off. This is something that Waylon Jennings took with him and carried with him his entire life. He felt so bad about it. There's a couple different interviews and books that have been written
I'd have known when they were booking this that this was it, I don't know for sure what I would have said. Probably yes, but I would stop for a minute and thought, because I've kind of dodged all of that all my life, you know. I mean, ever thinking too much about it. It's not that, I don't know how to explain it. It's just a mixed bunch of feelings when you know, you're never ready for someone dying, and when you feel guilty about it and everything, you know, you're thinking, trying to find reasons that you might have caused it, you know. And I never even saw a picture of the plane crash until 15 years later. I wouldn't look at it. And I was in my house one day looking through a book, and all of a sudden I saw it. And I just looked at it, and I could pick out who was who. Well, but it's something I never a week goes by that I don't think of something about Buddy and those guys. Not a haunt of any kind. It's usually something good, something I'll learn from them. Not long ago, I saw Ritchie Valens' sisters and their cousin. You know. We hung out with them a little bit, but it was a good thing, you know. But I learned that was a turning point. The night right here in my life, and that's probably why this place is the one I remember, and I don't remember anything before it. You know, like any ballroom or anything we played. I remember being in the bus, freezing to death, but I remember coming here and getting off the bus and going into a room. It wasn't like a dressing room at all. And there were a lot of chairs lined up, and that's where the Big Bopper came over. Buddy had told me that he had chartered the plane for me and him and Tommy also. And so that's where the Big Bopper came over, and he'd had the flu real bad. He was feeling terrible. The seats on that, you know, he was a big man, and the seats were about like that. We were in a converted bus, school bus. And so he said, I got to get some rest. He said, would you let me have your seat on the plane? I said, it's okay with Buddy, it's okay with me. And I heard later that Tommy and Ritchie flipped coins. But I think of things, every once in a while, I think something to laugh that went on that tour. It was quite an education for me to be so young.
What effect did Buddy Holly have on your music and your career and your life?
And attitude. Buddy was what I call an upper. He was laughing all the time. But he had another side to him, too. You messed with him, and you didn't want to mess with him. That was it.
Well, what's weird to me is this. The Surf Ballroom has fully embraced what happened. The crash site, the people who own the land fully embraced what happened. We're going to go to that in just a moment, and it's just absolutely beautiful what they've done. But here at the Mason City Municipal Airport, there is nothing that says anything about what happened that night in 1959. Now, this airport's getting torn down sometime this year. The plan is to build a new airport. But soon, very soon, it's going to be gone forever. So on the other side of this fence is the runway that they would have taken off from. If you look over to the left of your screen, through the fence, you can kind of see there's one of those ramps that people would take to get up to the aircraft. I mean, it was a smaller aircraft. It was a 4-seater. Well, the pilot and then 3 other people, which were for Buddy Holly, Ritchie Valens, and the Big Bopper. Well, that's it. This is just too beautiful. We had to pull over on the side of the road. Clear Lake is 3 miles straight ahead. Mason City is 8 miles to the left. It feels like it's getting colder. The wind is definitely picking up. But we are slowly making our way further out into the open fields here in Iowa to the crash site. We have a little bit of a hike ahead of us. The sun is coming out and most of the snow has melted. But back in February 1959 when the crash happened, there was a lot more snow on the ground. We're going to show you some photos and you're going to see that. We're not going to show you all the photos, but we're going to talk about them and one photo in particular. But it's pretty much just us out here. When we were out here last night, there was one other car. And the field is right over there. I feel like we're so far removed from society. When in fact, we're really not. I can hear cars off in the distance. Now, what you're looking at right now is the trailhead that takes you back to the crash site. And it's marked with these oversized glasses of Buddy Holly. It's going to be a muddy walk, but you can see it. The trail goes right along that fence. In fact, a lot of the photos, the plane where it finally landed was right up against the fence. Now, anybody who comes out here looks like they've been repainted over time, but people have signed their name. Now, this is cool. It's metal. What do you think, baby girl? I know it's cold, but you ready to hike out into the middle of the field on a windy day?
Yep.
All right, let's do it. But as we walk out here, just imagine dead of night, not a sound anywhere, and the airplane just flying overhead. Like me, if you've ever done any kind of research on this place, not only did you see the glasses, but you saw these other memorials with Ritchie Valens' name on it, as well as the Big Bopper. Those are up here at the actual crash site. I will say this, if you're out here and the weather's not perfect, like sunny, come prepared. A hat, maybe some gloves, boots, especially if it's raining. Not entirely sure, but I feel like we've been walking for about 10 minutes. It's out here. Still haven't seen the actual memorial yet.
I feel like you can see it down there.
It's crazy because you can see, if you look closely, you can see the mist coming off the ground. The birds. And almost right in the middle of the field. We reach it. Oh man. I know I say this all the time, but never in a million years did I ever think that I'd be standing right here. Buddy Holly, Ritchie Valens, Big Bopper, February 3rd, 1959. 3 records. Peggy Sue, Chantilly Lace, and Donna. I guess a lot of people have left glasses. And then this one right over here. The pilot. Roger Peterson, February 3rd, 1959. Jessica and I, baby Goal and I, we go on these adventures all across the country. Someday soon, the world, we're planning for next year. And we visit places like this. I've never, and I already said it, I can't stress it enough, I've never felt what I'm feeling now at any of those other places. My dad got me into a lot of the music that I listen to today, especially Buddy Holly and Ritchie Valens. And I wish I could bring my dad here. He's all the way in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, but I think he would enjoy this. Now, I have an interesting story about Ritchie Valens. Obviously never met him, but years ago when I was living in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, I was delivering pizza for for a Russian family in Brookline, Pennsylvania. And I was driving a 2001 orange Jeep Wrangler, things you remember. And I delivered pizza to this old woman, this old lady who was sitting on her porch when I rolled up, and I had the top off the Jeep, and I was listening to Ritchie Valens' Come On, Let's Go, one of my favorite songs. And I pulled up, and I got out, and I walked up to her to hand her food, and she looked at me, and she said, "You remind me of my husband, the way that he used to look back in the day." And Ritchie Valens' Come On, Let's Go was playing in my car, and she asked me to dance with her. And I danced with this old woman to Ritchie Valens in Pittsburgh. Now, she's probably long gone. This was years ago, but I always remember that. The music of these three people live on. They call this place the day the music died, and it makes sense. But their music is so very much alive today. The owners of this land are kind enough to allow visitors from all over the world to come up here and pay their respects and see this mark in history. But again, please remember that this is private property, and we're here because of the kindness of the owners, so always be respectful. Now, right behind the markers here is the fence, and parts of it look to be original. A lot of the photos that were taken that morning, whenever they came out to retrieve the wreckage and the bodies, were taken, and you can see the fence to the left of the camera, which means they would have been taken from pretty much right where I'm standing. Looking on.
The case of the plane crash is never officially closed. Every so often, they re-examine the facts, try to determine an even more official, clear picture of what happened, why it happened. And there's not an exact official ruling even today, but it was 15 degrees. It was just before 1 a.m. It was winter. There was a lot of snow. And it really is a case of two major factors, which is weather and error. Human error and not having the proper caution warnings before taking off. The pilot was young, and they say unseasoned, but he had many hours logged. However, right before the flight, he had failed one of his tests. So some people believe that he was not qualified for this flight. They also say that while he was given warnings about specific weather that would be pertinent to a pilot, he was not given several critical knowledge warnings about the weather, which would determine how he ascended, meaning how he took off, how steeply he took off, and where he would need to keep the plane for safety. And They believe that because it was night, with the snow, there was heavy flurries, and the temperature plus the passengers and the baggage may have caused it to be off balance, that he took a dive to level out the plane. Has to do with the clouds and precipitation and things like that. And he didn't have enough room, essentially, in layman terms, to do what he did, causing the plane to crash at 170 miles an hour. Now, when it did happen, the wing hit first, which caused the passenger holding of the plane, the cabin, to cartwheel for hundreds of feet. When it landed, the wreckage was thrown over about a space of 500 feet, which is quite a big area. So it went for quite a while. And there's still rumors about why, but it is believed that everyone was dead on impact.
Now here's something you need to keep in mind. The crash happened in the middle of the night, and authorities and people coming out here couldn't make it till daylight, so it was hours that they were laying out here in the snow. Now, I'm not going to show you the photos, but there is a photo that is out there taken from right about here, and of course where the memorial is in the photo, that's right around where the plane came to rest. Now behind it, you can see the cornfield just to the left of it. In the photo, that's where it is believed the Big Bopper was found. Just to the left of the puddle here was Buddy Holly, and right in front of the puddle, right between me and the puddle, is where Ritchie Valens was found. The pilot, Roger Peterson, from what I read, he was trapped inside the pilot's seat, still in the plane. By far, this is the hardest video I've ever done for the Grimm Life Collective. 3 musicians that I've loved ever since I was a little kid. I've loved their music. I still love it to this day. And coming out here to Clear Lake, Iowa, and standing here in the cornfield where the crash happened. And I never thought that I'd be able to stand on the exact stage where they played their last concert. Thank you for joining us on another adventure to the day the music died here in Clear Lake, Iowa. Till next time, happy Halloween.
Wherever I come, bad luck is coming my way. Wherever I go, hard luck is there to stay. Good luck never stays a day. Bad luck's always coming my way.